Hey, what's going on, beautiful people? This is me, the Infinity Midwife, coming to you once again. I hope you're taking care of your minds, your hearts, and your entire being. Listen up. I was inspired to do this video for my YouTube family. Now, you do know I do post collective messages every Friday or in the night of Thursday and Friday, but I was called to do this message. We are presently Wednesday, and I was called to share this message of having to make choices, okay? I feel that we need to have clarity when it comes to making choices. Why am I talking about choices tonight? I feel that we are moving into this space. We are being called to move into a space of, more authenticity, with more truth. We are being called, or we are being asked. And when I say we are being asked, who is asking us to do these things? The Most High. You want to call it God, you want to say Allah, you want to say Jesus, you want to say Christ, you want to say Buddha, you want to say the highest form of good, you want to say the universe. However you find, or whatever name you give it, okay, that suits your belief or suits your identity, so be it, okay? Like, there's no right or wrong answer to who is the real God. God is God, and however you address it, it's what suits you, and it's all good, okay? Now, what I'm trying to say is we are being called by the divine, by the Most High, to embrace more of ourselves. We are being called to embody more of our authentic self. And when I say authentic self is us coming into the awareness that we are human as much as we are of the divine. We are spiritually as much as we are humanity. And in that expression, that unique expression that is expressed through you, that is actualized through you, we are being called to walk in that new truth. Okay? And as we are being called to walk in that new truth. Now, some people have been on that path their whole life, right? And each and every individual has been walking that path, in our own way. We've all here to come experience life, and it will translate differently from one individual to another, right? Some people have been walking, and I like to say they've been answering the call from a very long time. And that call can be different from one person to the next. Okay, it's gonna look different from one person to the next. But how can you make a clear distinction? When you answer the call, what does that mean? It means you are answering the call of your higher self. You are answering the call of your heart. Okay. Now the calling is different. It's gonna be different. Some is going to be called into becoming a nun, into becoming a monk. Some is going to be a call for the love of music. And through that artistry, that calling, you're going to be expressing a voice that transcends time, that transcends race, that transcends religion, that transcends color. And it's going to be a voice that brings people together, that unify people, that brings people together. Okay. So everybody is going to be unique, and they're going to have their unique expression that is going to be them answering the calling, but it's going to be different. Okay. From one individual to another. And as we are coming into this period of change, I feel that for many of us, we've been answering to a calling that was not necessarily the calling of the heart. Okay, I'm gonna put it that way. It was probably more the calling of the mind, right? Or the calling of the normality, or the calling of what people usually do, or what are people, encouraged or influenced to do by external influences, right? Whether it's family, organizations, culture, any form of external authorities are going to be influencing the type of choices and the type of, decision making, life decision making that we're going to be, doing in our lives, right? The type of lives that we're going to be unfolding. Okay. So some people have received the calling of their heart from a very, very long time, and they've been on purpose from a very long time. And because we're here, we're human and we're still experiencing life, right? People that have answered their calling, their heart calling, are still going to have to experience different types of lessons. Maybe not as it pertaining to their heart's calling, but maybe, yes, maybe so. Okay, maybe they're going to have to, even if they've answered their heart's calling, they're still going to have to refine and to stay true and to stay on path and to stay on purpose, because there's going to be many distractions. There's going to be many oppositions as to them answering the calling of their heart. Okay. So why am I talking about choices tonight? I feel that many of us are awakening to the truth of the matter that we've been living our lives by answering different callings that were maybe not in alignment with our heart, with our soul purpose, with what God has put into your heart from ever since you've came into this embodiment, into this vessel. Okay. It has been different from every individual. But because we've been living, again, through an era of bondage, an era of slavery, where many of us needed to conform. Many of us needed to feel normal, to be normal, to fit in, right? Fit in, quote unquote, right? All of that were ways for us to drive us away from answering our true calling from the heart, our true purpose, okay? Because our true purpose is going to be different from one individual to another. You have one single, you have one voice, you have two eyes, you have one mouth, one nose, a set of hair, a set of experience, life experience. And that's going to have you, when you finally answer that calling, that heart's calling, you're going to express some truth. You're going to use your voice to speak on your heart's calling. And what is your heart's calling? As many people are on this path of answering their heart's calling, it's going to be refined by life experiences, the people you meet, the types of relationships you enter, partnerships you enter, the types of friendships you develop, the types of life experiences you have, right? The many hats you wear. You're a human being, but you can become a brother, a sister, a mother, a father, a spouse. You can become a girlfriend, a boyfriend, a neighbor, a citizen, a church choir member. Like, there are many, many hats that we can wear. So by wearing these different hats, we then become into, or we enter some form of exchange with people. We communicate with people. We learn about different people. We learn about different differences about people. And so all these enriched experience will have us, when we are on purpose, will have us to express our perspective, right? Our perspective in regards to these different life experiences that we are accumulating, right, through those different exchanges, is going to bring us into this, having a certain know-how, or having a certain outlook or perspective that is unique to you, that is unique to me, that is unique to you, that is unique to each and every individual. And when we utilize that experience with our heart's purpose, or with our calling of the heart or the soul, when we utilize our voice or the different ways we express or we answer the calling, we are then adding to a massive love, or a massive, I want to say a massive consciousness, or a collective of people answering the calling, right? Or we are emitting, by using our voice, we are emitting vibrations of higher frequencies because we are on purpose. And as we are still on purpose, we're still evolving and we're still refining. We're still changing as to what is our true calling because it is constantly evolving. You're not going to be the same person that answered that heart's calling, 10 years ago until now, right? You would have matured. You would have probably experienced, different forms of relationships. You would have learned more about yourself, right? On the types of things that, adds to you or adds value more to you or, doesn't add more value to you. What keeps you in purpose or on purpose and what drives you away of your purpose. You're going to learn these things. But if you are not answering your heart's calling, if you're answering other types of calling, it's going to be life lessons. And those lessons are going to be meant for you to come back into yourself and to finally answer that calling, that true calling. And that true calling, most oftentimes than not, is going to have you to choose. That true heart's calling is going to have you choosing, things that are different from everybody. Things that are not going to resonate for everybody. And that's what's going to be the most unique. That's what's going to be the most beautiful in you answering that heart's calling or that purpose, that soul purpose. It's in the actual choices that you're gonna make that is going to refine how you experience that soul calling, because it's going to be different from one individual to the next, right? We can all utilize crayons. We can all draw. We can all use our voice to say something. We can all look a certain way. We can all rock certain clothes, right? But it's going to be different from one individual to another. We all have that uniqueness and that experience that we have, that we've learned or that we've grown out of those life experiences and those different interactions with different individuals has made us who we are. And when we're ready, when we've learned the lessons, when we're ready to answer that calling, that heart's calling, it's going to require us to move differently, right? It's like we're going to change skin. Although we're keeping the skin in which we are in, but we are going to be shedding old things or old identification that no longer resonates, okay? And that's going to require a lot of courage. It's going to require a lot of courage because sometimes, if you've answered the calling way, like early on in life, maybe, you had to handle hardships, right? But because you were so adamant as to what your calling was when you were younger and you dealt with the opposition early on in life, you've adapted and you adjusted quickly as to staying on path. Right? And as you grew up, the type of lessons that you had to deal with is what is going to keep me on purpose and what is not going to keep me on purpose, right? And you're going to experience different things, right? As to what is going to keep you on purpose and what is not going to keep you on purpose. But if you're more like me, I'm a late bloomer, okay? I always had a calling, but I resisted the call for many, many years because I was convinced of other things. I was convinced that my calling was, to conform, to behave a certain way, to look a certain way, to have a certain identification as to my skin color, my last name, my culture, the way I look. I had certain identification that were not in alignment with my heart's calling. Okay. But because I've started integrating the life lessons that I was in, or, the different experiences in my life that brought light as to what was not part of my calling, right? Or what needed to be shed in order for me to actually see, okay, now that is not my heart's calling. This is my heart's calling. It required me to shed old skin, old identification to what I thought I was. And that is going to require, especially late bloomers, it's going to require a lot of courage and bravery, because you were probably in an environment, right? You were probably surrounded with people that looked at you a certain way, or people looked up to you a certain way, or, they had certain affiliation or certain attachments to you for whatever reason. And now that you're starting to change, you're starting to choose different things, you're starting to express yourself differently, people are gonna wonder, why are you changing? Like, who are you fooling? We've known you for like now 10, 20, 15 years. Why are you suddenly changing? Like, who you think you are, right? They're going to start saying that about you because they've known you to be a certain way for how long. But now that you are redefining yourself, you're shedding old skin, you're changing, you're making different choices that are not of the norm, choices that are not fitting, choices that are out of the box. People are looking at you like, especially in your environment, because it starts there. People are going to look at you and be like, who does she think she is? Or who does he think he is? Talking different, presenting yourself different, maybe not participating as much as you would back in the days, or, like you start distanciating yourself from certain things, certain people, and, you start changing your hair, maybe, I don't know, you start looking different, you start wearing your outfit different, and it's gonna bruise a lot of people because people were so used to you being a certain way. But now that you started seeing that you have a heart's calling and you want to answer that calling, and you actually are answering that calling, it's going to require you to make choices that goes against the norm, or that goes against that old identification that you had about yourself. And it's going to be uncomfortable because people around you are going to look at you as if you are crazy. Okay, because not a lot of people are willing to do that, especially if you're a late bloomer and you answer to your calling later in life. I'm in my mid-30s, okay? And it took me some time to get to that place of, actually questioning myself on a whole bunch of things that I thought was the norm, right? So when I started really like dismantling things, I had to shut down doors. I had to cut off people. I had to really clean the slate. That was the best way for me to do it, because I know myself. I know I have soft spots. I know I'm vulnerable. I know I'm sensitive to other people's opinion, other people's judgments. So I really had to, I would say isolate. I had to isolate myself because, it was going to be easier for me to make that change, to make that switch. Okay. Had I had a whole environment of people around me and listening to what people would say about, the different choices that I made, or, the new ventures that I'm going into, it would have brought a lot of doubt, because I know myself. I know that I can be soft, especially to the people that I look up to, or the people that I love. So I had to really isolate myself and come to the conclusion that I was willing to walk a different path. And that until I was comfortable into walking that certain path, I was not going to present myself to people. I was not going to, want to share my life with people. I was not willing to do that at all, because I wanted to be comfortable in standing in my new truth, in my new calling, right? And now that I stand in my truth, in my calling, now I feel like I can, present myself to the world, regardless of what people are going to say, regardless of what old friends, old neighbors, old lovers, old siblings, family members, I care less now. I'm careless. I'm carefree, okay? Of, people's opinion about, or the new ventures or the things that I'm doing right now that are totally different from the norm or the old identification of the person that I was 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. So people can look at me and say, she's different now. She's not so approachable. When you talk to her, she has a certain demeanor. She looks like she's on top of the world, or, people will have those certain projection towards you. And you have to be willing to still stand in that uncomfortable position in the beginning. It's going to be uncomfortable because it's going to require you to stand in that truth and it's only a truth that you recognize in the beginning, right? It's going to be a truth in which you recognize, and people are maybe not are going to be able to recognize. So you're going to feel like you're receiving a lot of opposition, right? But when you're changing, when you're going through a transformation, not everybody's going to be there to acclimate you, especially if in that transformation, you know, you are venturing in things that, you know, people, or you have people in your environment venturing in the same thing, and now they see you venturing it and they're like, what is she doing, or what is he doing, right? And they have now all these thinking, or, you know, these thoughts racing through their head as to, you know, why you're different now, you're no longer the same. But the whole beauty of it all is that when you, especially, I'm talking to my late bloomers for some reason, because I feel the love, I feel that I have to share and to comfort you, because it's not easy to do it when you've been dedicating most of your life as to identifying yourself as someone that you were not, or you identified yourself and you were doing things to please people around you because, you know, that was the image that people were saying about you. But now that you're not that, or you've changed, you've transformed, you've become something else, right? Now it's harder for people to give you your flowers, or, you know, to recognize who you have transformed into. And not everybody's going to be there to do that. And that's the beauty of it all. Because as you change, as you transform, you're going to realize that you understand now why there was so much, even when you were, you know, identifying as your old self, you were trying to do things differently, but you wouldn't still feel, you know, at your place. You wouldn't still feel comfortable because you felt like you were always going against your heart, you know, and all things that you would do before, you felt like you were doing it not from a place of heart, but from a place of ego, you know, trying to identify because you want to fit in, you want to look a certain way, you want to blend in, you want to have the recognition, the flowers, the people, you know, acclimating you. You want to feel like you blend in. And I get you, because I was there too. But now that I've let that go and I'm in a space where it's different, I'm not saying I'm fully over and I have fully transformed. What I'm saying is I'm on that path, okay? And while you are on that path, it's not going to be easy for everybody to support you. Because when you start changing, what does that say to your environment, right? Change is good. And when you start changing, like, it's not everybody that's going to want to change themselves, because it's like a mirror. When you start reflecting something that is not, you know, someone cannot, because this is how it goes, right? There's a saying that says, like, something flock, like a bird flocks or whatever have you. Like, you know, tell me who are your friends and I'll tell you who you are. Those type of sayings. So, you know, those type of sayings are just letting you know, like, you attach yourself to groups of people, to environments, right? Because the reflections are identical. You think the same, you do the same things, you probably have the same, maybe not all, but you have certain values, you know, you have maybe the same religion, you have the same mindset, you have the same, you know, goals, you know, so you flock together, right? Birds, wait a minute, what is the saying? Birds of the feathers flock together or something. Yeah, something like that. Okay, I don't know it all, but yeah, so it's something like that. And what does that just say is when you start, like, when the feathers start changing color on the bird, all the feathers will be looking at it and be like, what? When was this orange feather appeared on this swan? Like, right? Like, it's going to be like, what the hell? Right? Even the swan is going to ask itself the question, when did I ever have this orange feather? When did it ever appear? Right? Even the swan is going to take away that feather and throw it out because it does not fit in no more. So I'm just sharing that analogy so that you can understand that you're no longer reflecting that image to the group or to that belonging or to that environment or to that setting where, you know, everybody was reflecting toward one another, right? Now you're just reflecting, you're trying to reflect and people are like, whoa, what's that? whoa. Like, you're trying to reflect back and you're like, whoa, no, that's not me. And you reflect back to the next person, and next person is like, whoa, what are you doing? Right? So it keeps you in the space of, especially if you stay in the same environment, it's going to be harder for you to break free and to fully become your own self, because there's going to be a lot of, people's opinions, people doubts, people questioning. And I know that, we have families, we have siblings, we have people that we love around us that, we don't want to lose. But ultimately, okay, that's my word. That's my final word for you guys. When you are making the choices to answer your heart's calling, now I'm not saying the ego's calling, where you identify with external influences to fit in. What I'm saying is, when you start identifying with your heart's calling, okay, you're going to start making choices that looks different from your external environment. And you're going to receive opposition. You're going to receive opposition, especially from the people closest to you. And some are going to understand down the line. It's going to take time, right? And however you deal with it, if you're a very strong-headed person, when you say you change, and there's no two-way about it. It's your way, and that's just it. And people adapt. Cool, right? But in most environments, when you're the black sheep, or you're the odd one that is always fearful, afraid to bruise people's egos and shit. Like, when you start changing, people around you are gonna question, because it's gonna bruise their ego, like I said, right? Especially if you're one of those people pleasers like I was. Like, it's gonna be hard for you to allow, or really answer that heart's calling, because you're sensitive, right? You're sensitive to other people's opinions and whatever have you. So my advice to you is, do whatever you need to do. Make the decisions that are comfortable for you to make. But at some point, you're going to have to understand that family goes beyond the blood ties. Family goes beyond, the affiliations, the attachment, the culture, the religion. Like, as you start answering your heart's calling, you're going to start reflecting, like, you're going to start magnetizing and attracting other people that have started answering their calling. Okay? So you're going to meet people that have answered their calling, and at first it's going to feel awkward, because you're going to be like, okay, like, we have those differences. Like, we don't look similar. We have different tastes. I have different tastes. And, it can be partnerships. It can be friendships. It can be your new identification of what family is. It can be a new loving situation. It's going to be different for everybody. Okay. But once you start, vibing on a higher frequency, because you've answered your heart's calling, just be open. Okay. Because, sometimes it's going to look different. But because the heart, like, the frequency of the connection is higher, you're going to feel that, okay, he accepts me as I am. I accept them as they are. We can move forward together, or we can come together and create magic or beauty, is what I'm saying. But if you're still, if you're still holding on to the old ways of what, attachment felt like, or the type of bond or the type of recognition that you had in your old environment, it's going to be kind of like a blockage for you to overcome. Okay. But it's going to happen eventually. So just be patient, and, keep changing. That's my final advice for you. Keep changing, keep making those choices that's going to bring you into a space of accepting all that you are, at the very core, right? Because, if you are, now here's what I'm going to say as well. If you are in a situation where you feel like you've answered your heart's calling, but you're surrounded with people that have not answered their own heart's calling, it's going to feel burdensome. It's going to feel burdensome, because especially if you're successful at what you do, regardless of whatever heart's calling or purpose you are on. If you are successful at what you do and you surround yourself with people that have not, done the work to answer to their heart's calling, it's going to feel burdensome because, first of all, you're not going to see eye to eye. You're going to have a certain mindset that's going to be different than other people's mindset because they're driven by other motivations than yours. They're going to feel like you are out of place or you need to have more responsibility because you're on purpose. You're more responsible. You're more successful at what you do. So take that responsibility, right? So they're going to give you a form of responsibility which has nothing to do with you being on purpose. And that's the utmost difference that you need to make here. When you start being on purpose, you got to understand something, okay? I'm going to take the story of Jesus Christ, okay? He was on purpose, and I'm not going to say mistake. It was not a mistake. You know when they say like he took the sins of everybody and, that he died on a cross for everybody's sin. Okay. Now we got to understand when you start answering your heart's calling. Okay. Yes, you're going to come back into your environment where you were. You're going to meet again with your family members and friends and all of that. And you're going to want to uplift people's burden by being there, especially if you're successful. You're going to want to carry everybody else's burdens, right? But that's just turning you into a martyr. Okay. That's turning you into a martyr. And then that's also you not fully being grateful towards your heart's calling. Now, let me explain myself. When you start answering your heart's calling, one thing that you're going to have to assess is your environment. If your environment is not conducive for you to continue evolving on your path, on your heart's calling, if it's not conducive for that, you're going to have to start assessing where you are and start cutting off people. Because the minute you start, let's say you've been on purpose for a long time, but you've always had that idea that you come back into your community or your old circle of people, and then you want to carry their burdens, right? You feel responsible because now you've been on purpose, so you feel now responsible for the whole community. So you start, giving, but you realize that in your circle, there's not a lot of people reciprocating that same whatever energy, dedication, participation. You feel that you're giving more than you're receiving. That's keeping you in this space of being stuck, stagnant. Because now you're going to want to overdo it. You're going to want to take more responsibilities in order to give more. But that is not how you do it. You cannot stay on purpose, especially on your heart's purpose, not on your ego's purpose. On your heart's purpose. You cannot stay on your heart's purpose and feel like you're evolving. No. You're going to start being stuck, and you're going to be turning in this wheel of taking on more responsibilities because you have attracted or you've stayed in an environment that was not conducive to your growth. Because you've answered your heart's purpose, you're doing God's work, does not mean that you have to go back to your old environment if you have not put or set boundaries, healthy boundaries, for you to be healthy and stay on purpose and continue to grow. Because ultimately you have to grow. You have to create more. You have to be in an environment where it's conducive for you to be more refined on your purpose. But if you feel that you're stuck, you're taking more responsibilities and you're creating more. Now you're working more with the ego because now you realize, okay, you have to do this. You have to do this for this one. You have to do this for this one. You have to carry the other person's burden. You're going to be the one crucified. You're going to be the one crucified. And this has to stop. We need to stop. We need to stop this. See, I cannot even say. We need to stop this narrative that we need to be crucified or we need to be martyred, and we need to come back in old environments where people have not evolved because they're not in their heart space, they're in their mental space, they're in their ego space, right? I want to take this example. You can be the one that has been on purpose or you've answered your heart's calling and you've been very successful in whatever you do, but you've humbled yourself. You're not one to outshine people. You're not one to, to expose, the many things that you have received because you've stayed on purpose. You've answered your heart's purpose. You're not one to do these things. When you go in your old environment with, old family, friends, siblings, lovers, you find that they have more refined taste than you. You find that they have more luxurious demands than you. This is not how it works. And it has to be clear. This is not how it works. So my advice to you is, if you've come into the space where you've answered your heart's calling, but you have stopped evolving because you started acting more from a place of ego than from your place of heart, recognize this. You have to make an assessment. You have to start moving to calmer waters. What does that mean? If you have people in your environment that are not conducive to your growth, to your evolution, to your refinement of your purpose, of your heart's calling, because the heart's calling is continual, is not stagnant, right? Nothing in nature is stagnant. Everything keeps moving. Everything keeps evolving. So if you have come into the space of stagnancy where you feel like, okay, now you need to, maybe do things that you wouldn't do before, but now you have to do them because now you've taken more burdens, more responsibilities. You're no longer acting from the place of heart. You're acting from the place of ego, because now you're going back to your old identification of, carrying other people's burdens, because now that you have come into this higher space, or now that you've given or you've risen in status because of your heart's calling, your original heart's calling, it brought you into the space of maybe fame, of fortune, of whatever have you. But with that fame and that fortune, you have to recognize that you cannot go back to a place of ego. Because if you go back to a place of ego identification, you're going to start carrying other people's burdens, but that is not yours to carry. And that is so very important to say here. This is why you have to have healthy boundaries, especially if you're a person that is extra sensitive, you're an empath, you feel people's pain, you feel people demise, or you feel people's struggle, so you want to help them. Okay? Now, my advice to you is this. You need to move to calmer waters. You need to make an assessment of all the people that you're carrying burdens for, because you need to balance out the scales. We are in Libra season. And my message is to whoever is listening to this, whether you've answered your heart's calling or not, or you are about to, you're going to have to make an assessment wherever you are on your journey. And whatever is conducive to answering your heart's calling, or to refining your heart's calling, you're going to have to balance out the scales. You're going to have to balance out the scales. This right here is going to be the scale of your heart's purpose, where you feel light, where you feel that you're creative, that you are on purpose. You write it down. All the things that you're doing that keeps you on your purpose, on your heart's calling. And here is going to be everything that does not keep you on your heart purpose. And you're going to outweigh. You're going to balance it out. You yourself, you can do it. Okay? And that's when you're going to have to say, this is too burdensome. Like, if the scale balance out like this, you feel that you're no longer living out of your heart space. You're living out of your ego. So you're going to have to cut things on this scale right here so that you can replace it like that. Right? So it balances out. Okay? That's my advice for you. And also, I want to say one last thing. You've answered your heart's calling. You have gone back to your old environment to, have the acclamation or have the recognition or help people because you help people. Make sure that when you are giving, you are receiving as well. That is very important. When you are giving, you are also receiving. And when I say give, you can give really from the heart, okay? And, we like to say, if I give, God is going to give it back to me tenfold. And that is true. But you also have to develop an awareness where you're not just giving because you have, so you have to give. That is very important, because that is also showing the universe that you are wasting what has been given unto you if you're not making the proper choices. One other thing I want to say, when you are giving, not only check the intention behind it. Why are you giving it? But I want to say this too. When you give, it's important that there's a message that needs to be spoken, okay? And that message is, people around you need to feel that you are an agent of change. People around you, whether you are in your old environment or a newer environment, people need to feel that you are constantly changing, that you're constantly moving things around, that you are constantly for the evolution and refinement of your heart's calling. So that people come around you, they're not lazy, right? They have a project. They themselves are thriving to be on their heart's calling. And that's going to be important for you to discern. Because once you discern yourself, you're going to realize, okay, this person, I've helped them. They've had project and they came back to me with some good results. They've advanced, they've evolved, they themselves. Good. But this one person over here, that said that, they have all these things going on for them. I've invested in them, but I realize whether it's money, you've invested time, energy, money, or, whatever investments, okay? Investment is not just limited to money. It can be time, it can be energy, it can be, various things, various resources. So you've invested some form of resource in that person, and you realize that person is even more so in their ego. That's when you need to slice for real. That's when you're going to need to use your sword of truth to speak a truth, to lay it out, so that this person knows, like, you've invested such and such in them and it has not produced proper results. That person is still stagnant. That person is still waiting for you to give again, waiting for the next time because they have a car now, or they have, they're active more out of their ego more than out of their heart. That's going to be indicative that you no longer need to invest in them, as crazy as it might sound. And that's when you're going to know who are the real ones that are there to stay with you on your path, and who are the ones that you're going to have to let go of. And you can do this in a very diplomatic way, but it's going to have to be done in order for you to stay on your path. Or else you're going to be crucified. Or else you're going to be the one dying a martyr, trying to take everybody else's burden on them. Because what we're not saying, the burdens equal demons. The burdens equal demons. You see, let me just dive a little deeper so that you get the understanding of what I'm saying. The burdens equal demons. When people are around you, when I was telling you about the feather of the same bird flock together, or whatever, right? Whatever that saying is, people are reflecting back to you what they are, right? People stay together because they can reflect back to one another, their likes, their values, their culture, whatever they feel that they can reflect back to them. That's why they stay together, they flock together. But the minute there's an agent of change that is around them, and that no longer that they can reflect back to that person, what are the other people around them reflecting or projecting? They're projecting their fears onto that person, that agent of change. They're projecting their inner demons, their insecurities. All these are demons, right? We want to call them flaws. They're not flaws. They're demons, because it evolves. It's a small insecurity that starts like this and then it evolves like this, right? That's when you are dealing with now an energy that is now draining you, that is now taking more of you. Before you wanted to help, but now you realize because you stayed in that same environment with the same people that you were trying to get away from in order for you to tap into your heart's calling, you realize those same people that now that you've gone back are projecting onto you. are telling you now it's your fault, that they are suffering. So now you need to take the responsibilities. You need to uplift them. And what does that make you? A martyr. You become the projected one. You become the one that have to uplift everybody's burden. But that's the old way of seeing things. That's what we've learned in the Bible. For those that read the Bible. I'm not saying about the Old Testament, but maybe the Newer Testament. That's where you understand the story of the martyrdom. That's where they teach you that. But I'm here to tell you that it does no longer need to be done that way. No longer people need to die because they need to carry on with the burdens of everybody else. People need to become responsible for their ego and their heart. If people choose to live off of their ego, let them live off their ego. But just you make sure that you are living off of your heart and that you have placed boundaries so that you can continue to be on your path. But if you have not set healthy boundaries with people and people are eating out of you, you're gonna be done. And I'm very serious. That is why it's important when you are going through that change, that transformation, and you choose to go back to your old environment, because you can choose to move on and, say, give love from a distance. And that's also okay. Not everybody is the same. People that transform, that change, understand it, and they're going to want to stay on this high vibrational frequency, and they're going to want to flock with other people that are on that same vibrational frequency. And yes, they're going to be met with challenges, but it's not going to be obstacles. It's going to be challenges that they're going to have to overcome. There's a difference, okay? But when you are choosing to go back and to, help people, or maybe go and help people come with you, one thing that's very important for you to understand, the heart's calling is not you that can bring people to their heart's calling. It's them. People are going to have to pick up their phone. Their heart's calling, when it's calling, they're going to have to be the one answering the call, because there's work behind it. There is enormous type of work behind it, behind your heart's calling. It's not just you wake up one day and you go on your heart's calling. There's dedication, there's consistency, there's discipline, there's shadow work, recognizing what keeps you stuck, what keeps you from evolving. That's shadow work, right? Recognizing where you're lacking. That's shadow work. But it's hard. It's not easy. Not everybody wants to take that journey to answering your heart's calling. Answering the call is one thing. Working to stay on the path is another. Okay, you guys. So I wanted to just draw a last card. I know I've talked a lot, but it needed to come out. I was like, what am I going to talk about tonight? And I get the voice in my head saying choices. I'm like, okay, what about choices? And so I feel like I needed to say whatever I needed to say tonight. So I hope it helped you. Because I feel like as we are stepping more and more into living off of our true selves, it's going to require for us to make choices that's maybe going to be uncomfortable for the ones around us. And that's okay. Okay. So the card that we got is security. So you see how there are the stars, there's the Milky Way, we can say, or there's the universe, and there's the cave and the fire burning. So this entails exactly what we're talking about. Security. Knowing that this cave is your vessel. It's your body. This flame right here is your heart. And this right here is the environment. It's the external. So remember, wherever you are, remember here that this is your security. your heart in your vessel is your security. You can feel at home wherever you are once you've answered that heart's calling. Sometimes you can feel alone on your lonely path where you feel like nobody's there. But trust, maybe even those stars can be your guardian angels, can be your spiritual guides, can be God watching over you, telling you that this right here is your security, reminding you, comforting you that this is your security. So you have to maintain it alive. Because look, there's a hole, right? Sometimes it rains. Sometimes you're not going to be experiencing good days where you're going to want to fully entertain that internal flame. But because you've answered the call, remember that you are being watched over. People are watching over you. Maybe not in this dimension, but maybe other dimensions. Your ancestors, nature is watching over you. Nature got your back. All while you keep the burning flame alive. That is your security. Baby, I'm done with y'all. I'm done with y'all. I'm done. Yeah, truth. It's the truth. I just split the deck in two. Yeah, this is your truth. I'm just speaking the truth tonight. Okay, so take care of your minds, your hearts, and your whole being. That one was a long one. I don't usually do long videos, but that one I felt like I needed to do. So yes, more videos to come. Take care. Peace.